What's happening, peeps? My name is goukigod, and in this video we're going to be taking a second look at Battlefield 1 to see if all the updates and new content added since launch have improved the game, if it's a better value product now, and if you're still on the fence, is now a good time to jump in. Now, a lot of games these days, particularly first-person shooters, see a continuous flow of updates and new content long after launch. So for this reason, I thought it was well worth looking at Battlefield 1 again to see how it stacks up against its peers. Now, the first-person shooter genre is extremely competitive, and to stay relevant even for a AAA shooter, that's no longer a simple task. A good example of this would be Titanfall 2. Despite the game reviewing well and being very solid, and also continuously receiving a bunch of free DLC, the game is struggling to build a player base compared to games like Call of Duty, Battlefield 1 and Overwatch. So Battlefield 1 launched in October of 2016, and at the time it came with 9 maps and 6 modes. It was critically well received with numerous Game of the Year award nominations, and it won Best Action Game from the Game Critic Awards. It sold well and actually exceeded EA's sales expectations for the game. So from a launch perspective, the game has done very well. So let's take a look at what's been added to the game post-launch. The first amount of substantial free DLC added to the game was the Giant Shadow map, which is added in December of 2016. This also added the Grenade Crossbow, which was a new gadget for the support class. There have been numerous patches to update the balance and bug fixes, but the next substantial update in regards to free content came with the spring update. Ribbons and dog tags were added into the game to add some kind of progression system, as this was one of the biggest complaints by many players, particularly because this was an area in which Battlefield 4 was really fleshed out. Platoons was added, giving players new ways of grouping up and playing together, but arguably the biggest addition was the introduction of 4 new weapons. The Hellriegel Defensive 1906 Sniper, the Huyot Automatic Optical, or however that's pronounced, and the Martini Henry Sniper. These weapons were added to the level 10 rank as kind of a tier 2 option, and this also added an extra layer of progression, as these weapons have specific requirements in order to unlock them. The game has also seen numerous changes to the UI and also to the gameplay. A perfect example of this would be the Medic Revive Intent system, which allows you to spot fallen teammates and notify them that you're on the way to revive. So let's move on to the paid content. So in keeping with the system that DICE and EA have been using for the last few games, Battlefield 1's expansions will be broken up into 4 main DLC packs. The first of these is called They Shall Not Pass, and introduced the French as a playable faction. The following 3 expansions have been named, but no further details have been listed. The next one up will be In the Name of the Tsar, which will be introducing the Russian faction, and also, and quite controversially, playable female characters. The next DLC pack is going to be called Turning Tides, and based on the marketing material and concept art, it looks like it will introduce naval battles. The final major DLC pack is called Apocalypse, and outside of some marketing material, very little is known about this DLC pack at this point. Now beyond this, DICE has been inviting players on PC to join something called the CTE, which stands for Community Test Environment. This allows them to trial new maps, modes and features on a smaller player base before rolling them out to the general public. This was something that was also present in Battlefield 4, and it's a welcome addition here, as it allows for a good level of community feedback, and it helps provide the developers with real-world data in which to make changes to the game. Now beyond this, there's a couple of maps which have been on the CTE which aren't currently available to the public. The first of these is called Nivelle Nights, which is a nighttime map which is eventually going to be made available to premium pass holders. The second map, also available in the CTE at the moment, is Prix de Jour, and my apologies for butchering the pronunciation of that. Now both of these maps will be made available to premium pass holders, but at this point it's unclear if it will be made available to the general public. Given that there's only been 1 free map added to the game so far for all players, this would seem like a no-brainer, but obviously we'll have to wait and see what EA and DICE are going to do. So to summarize the new content, in general I think that most people would agree that the quality of this new content has been very high, although in terms of quantity, not nearly enough. Having said that, it does outperform its closest competitor Call of Duty in this area, and perhaps that's the only benchmark that they're aiming for. Unfortunately though, when you compare Battlefield 1 to many other shooters on the market, it is quite low in regards to free content, particularly when you compare it to 2 of its closest rivals, Titanfall 2 and Overwatch. These games have gone some ways into embracing the concept of games as a service. Battlefield 1 has also been heavily criticised for not having as much content as Battlefield 4. Even outside the level of new content added to the game, Battlefield 1 still lacks a real progression system. It has no weapon progression system either, nor does it have character customization, which has become a staple of modern shooters. It's also been criticised for having very few weapons. Compared to the previous game, it has less than half the weapons in Battlefield 4, although a good argument could also be made for quality over quantity in this department, with many of the weapons in Battlefield 4 being considered cookie cutter weapons. So, while the game has seen numerous updates, the scope of these in terms of new content has been reasonably minimal. The amount of premium content on offer is also quite disappointing, considering the shift for many other first-person shooters to a free DLC strategy. Having said that, the game doesn't feel light on things to do. The campaign, while short, is good, and definitely worth playing through, even if you're someone who predominantly likes the multiplayer only. So, is Battlefield 1 a dramatically better game than it was at launch? Basically, if you were fundamentally unhappy with what Battlefield 1 had to offer at launch, then I don't think the changes made since then are substantial enough to warrant a second look. This goes for players who are still on Battlefield 4 and were thinking of migrating over. I still think that you're going to be disappointed with the scope and amount of features available. Still, having said that, Battlefield 1 is a fantastic shooter with a healthy community, and based on DICE's recent announcement that the game is going to be receiving updates on a monthly basis, it seems like the level of content and features is only going to grow in the future. The price of the game has dropped, at least locally anyway, so you should be able to get this game for a lot cheaper than retail, and if you come across this in a sale and are a fan of the Battlefield franchise or first-person shooters in general, I definitely say don't pass this one up. Anyway, that's my thoughts on Battlefield 1 as it stands 6 months after launch. Let me know your thoughts on the game. Are you someone who bought it at launch? And if so, are you still enjoying the game? I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section below, but that's all I've got for you in this video. I want to thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'm out.